Today, we have two very interesting people as our guests. One is Anetta Kahane. She was born in East Berlin. She's a German left-wing journalist, author, and activist against racism, right-wing extremism, and anti-Semitism. After German reunification, in response to increased racist violence in former East Germany, she founded in 1998 the organization called Amadeu Antonio Foundation, which she has led since 2003 as a chairwoman until recently. The foundation is one of the largest, if not the largest, organizations in Germany devoted to the defense of rights of racial, ethnic, and religious minorities in that country. For the last 20 years, Anetta Kahane has been a target of right-wing hate campaigns, possible terror plans by right-wing nationalists, which are currently investigated by the Germany's chief prosecutor. Anetta is a regular columnist for several major German dailies. Another guest that we have is Dr. Martin Jander. He is a historian, lecturer, and journalist. He teaches German and European history at the Berlin campuses of Stanford University and New York University there. He was born in West Germany. During 70s and 80s, he was active in establishing contacts with a number of dissidents in East Germany. He is an associate professor and teaches at Free University of Berlin, a popular course called To Hell and Back, Modern German History in European Context. Anetta, Martin, welcome to Chicago Jewish Cafe.
Thank you for the invitation.
Anetta, before I ask my first question, I want to say something that you may not agree with, given continuous possibility of vile threats against you. For me, seeing a Jewish woman like yourself leading one of the most important human rights organizations in Germany, a country where most of Jews had been exterminated, and those who continue to live there, most of Jews in other countries, until at least very recently, wanted little or nothing to do with.
Mm-hmm.
It is a miracle to me that you are so public and so open and continuously fighting for the right things. It is a miracle, something that all Germans, I believe, should really be proud of if they learned anything about themselves or being human. So my first question to you, Anita, is this. The vast majority of 3,000 or so remaining Jews in East Germany in 1945, after the defeat of Nazis, considered German Democratic Republic their homeland. How did you, a daughter of the communist parents who fought in Spanish Civil War against the fascists there, and who came back to build what they thought of an anti-fascist Germany on the ruins of the Third Reich, experience the loss of your parents' so-called anti-fascist home and its unification with West Germany, a state which rehabilitated its Nazis from its very early years. From what I understand, your parents thought of themselves largely as communists and even told you not to tell anyone when you were growing up that you were a Jew.
Yeah, that's true. So,
well, go ahead.
I think this is a very interesting question. It's a very interesting situation I was in. My parents were communists somehow, but in their family life, and so they were not Stalinists. Also, they were more liberal people, you know. My mother was an artist, my father was a journalist, and we just talked about everything. There was no taboo. This on one hand. On the other hand, they have been very dogmatic outside, but also in their view on what their kids should do, or to what their kids should become, or what the kids should tell or not. And I lived a life with it was a kind of how do you say, two different minds in my mind. One was like, I have to be very grateful for the German Democratic Republic, and my parents fought for them, and they've been to the concentration camp. So I have to try my best to fit in this society, because of that's what they wanted, my parents, you know, second generation Holocaust trauma somehow. And this was one thing. The other thing was, when I went outside, I noticed that the GDR society was just even the same German society than it was in the West. You know, it was not less Germans, and they were not less a part of the National Socialist system. They were just Germans, like they were in the West. Of course, we had all these.
How old were you when you recognized it, or when you thought that way?
I think it's a good question. I think at the age of 13 or something, I realized that there were two different movies in my head. You know, there are two different things, and I couldn't get
Did
it.
anything happen like this for you to recognize? By the way, were you able to freely go from East Berlin to West Berlin?
No, of
So
course
how
not.
did you
But my
recognize it
parents
was
did, and
you?
they did, and they
Uh-huh.
said, "Well, you're not. You know, this is nothing very special. I can't tell you about the West. It's not worth going there." So this was a horrible shock of reality. My brothers, you know, my poor little brothers, they were 5 or 6 years in a very terrible how do you say, a boarding school, because my parents wanted to go to India, and the GDR took the children as hostages from a certain age on. So nearly their entire childhood, they were in this boarding school. My parents just didn't give a shit, you know. They wanted to work and they wanted to do their things, but it was such a horrible situation that families could be easily destroyed in this way, because the state said, no, we take the children, we leave the children here, so to be sure you come back. And all this brutality in everyday life, it was, we realized it, but we couldn't think it, you know. It was in the everyday anger, or in the everyday fear, or suffering, but it was not something to reflect. That came only later, you know. And for me, several situations like that. Of course, I had some anti-Semitic. Some people called me, like they told some anti-Semitic stories when they realized I'm a Jew. I never. From the age of 16, I had the Morgen David, because my parents said, "Don't take this up. You have to discover it," and so. But I said, "No," you know, and and of course the reaction was like aggression, you know. And when I came home from this and several other incidents, my father always said, "My daughter, why are you so complicated? These are outside there in the world are all comrades. They wouldn't treat you like this. This is something that is in your mind." So this was, you know, it was a kind of.
Did he ever put Morgan David on himself?
No.
Oh, Keeper.
But what he did was, he after the there were some persecution on Jews in the early 50s. And he was
You
so
mean
afraid.
after Slansky trial,
Yes,
Czechoslovakia?
he was in Czechoslovakia in 49, and he saw that. And he came back to Germany because he had such a fear. So my parents came back to Germany, and around them, there were a lot of people who had to suffer from this persecution. So in several years later, like 55, 56, my father asked one of his old comrades who was in Buchenwald and was also a Jew and was also in France and he asked him, can't you send me as a journalist to another country? So this man said, of course I can. We have two possible positions. One is New Delhi and the other one is Cairo. And he automatically said, then I take New Delhi.
But your children would need to be moved to our hostage place, no?
Yes, I not, because I was too little. I was still not in the school. So I could go with them, and my brothers could go also for the first year, but then they had to hostage to the hostage. So what I want to say is it was a very, very crazy situation when you see it on a psychological way, because all what I registered was the complete opposite of this, what the ideology said, and also how my parents behave sometimes, because in the inner circle they were talking in another way than outside. All the friends were former immigrants from Jewish immigrants from Western European countries, and when they were birthday party, they were all Jews and all immigrants from somehow.
All your friends were children of immigrants from Western countries, not from Poland?
No, the friends they were exiled. We had an exile movement during the Nazi period, one to the Soviet Union,
right,
one to the Western countries like Great Britain, France, Spain, Mexico, etc. So those who came back from the Western countries were somehow very familiar to us. Those who came back from the former Soviet Union, there were only one. This was a very close friend of my father, but and he was completely.
So they were all German Jews, but
yes,
ended up in exile in different countries.
Yes,
so they were not born in other countries and came to GDR. They were born in that area and then left for
because of fear of persecution. They were like my father. He left Germany in 1933. My mother also, and a little bit later. And as communists, of course, they were somehow in the organization of these exile countries. My father first went to Czechoslovakia, then to Spain and France, and so always in the clandestine movements, and as a fighter in Spain, as a fighter in the Marquis in France, and so. My mother was too young for that. She was just, she was doing other things when she was a grown up. So, yes, and they both ended in concentration camps in France. And my mother was liberated from the concentration camp in Drancy, close to Paris. And my father was the only survivor from a concentration camp in the south of France, a Jewish concentration
camp.
ended
up, they were not deported to death camps. No. So they were able to present themselves as non-Jews.
No, no, they were not able, but they were lucky.
They were lucky.
The strange word luck in this time, like circumstances, moments, situations, and so they were lucky.
Truly lucky.
Yes, they were.
But your grandfather, as I understand, spent all this time in Germany.
The grandfather of my father, yes. Yeah. He was a very, very, very smart guy. And he did something amazing. He he was in Berlin all the time. I don't know why he never escaped. They were very poor, so they couldn't afford to get a visa or something. So when the first bombings on Berlin came, and it was also the situation that they deported the Jews from Berlin, he took off his star, and he went to the official, I don't know, to an entity of the community, to I don't know what, and he said, well, my house was bombed. I lost all my papers. My name is Karl Hane. Karl Hane. This sounds a little bit familiar too, and my name is Karl Hane. I need new papers. And meanwhile, he had another apartment to go. He prepared this for a long time, and so he just escaped somehow. Then some
Smart
people,
guy.
yeah, very smart guy. Yeah, very smart guy. He went to a little town outside of Berlin because he had a Catholic friend who brought him there, and he said to the neighbors, well, this is my friend Karl, and he will stay here because he was bombed. And the problem was that the daughter of them, Sonia, had to become member of this Nazi women's organization, and she couldn't stand that, and so she escaped to. One day she left Berlin and she went to I don't know, to Munich or something, and but she also survived. They were all very smart. Somehow they did. Yeah,
I'm
this is
very happy that they did. I mean, I wish many more people were able to do
so
anything like this.
if you ask me why I know people always ask me, how do you manage to run this organization with all these threats? And so since my early childhood, I was always comforting myself when I was in a difficult situation, like the dentist or something, with these horror stories of the concentration camps, or with I don't know, all these stories of suffering and persecution and torture and so. And I say, well, what is my pain compared to what my parents went through or other people? And so this was nothing, it was just. So you see, this was a difficult situation, but that's the answer. Probably it is the answer why I'm
This is
still here.
amazing to me, that in East Germany, in GDR,
Yeah.
at 16, so it's 1970, you wore Magen David.
Yeah, I did. And later too, and I always did that because sometimes it was also something, my father was from a Hasidic family, and his father and his grandfather came from Galicia, from Lemberg, and the grandfather was a very, very
When did they come from Lemberg?
in 1905, from the beginning.
1905?
Yeah.
And
So
they before the war, before the First World War.
Yes. My father was born in 1910, and they came with all this Hasidic culture. And my father always liked it very much. So he was always, when I came home sometimes from school.
So they were Ostjude to all other Germans at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but they were in Hanover. But when they came to Berlin, they actually lived in the Scheunenviertel in Berlin, what was the ghetto in Berlin, and with all these other people, with Hasidic Jews, with this month of all the kids around them, and everywhere a synagogue, and so. And my father decided to have his bar mitzvah at the age of 13, and then he said, father, please leave me alone with this shit. I think that it's more interesting what is happening across the street with the communist youth. So he went to to see the communists, and this was in the 20s.
1923.
Yeah,
So
somehow.
it's Weimar Republic.
Yes.
So
Yes,
now
but
there's
he was also, he had a little odyssey of different Jewish organizations for young people and German organizations, also Zionists and anarchist Zionists and I don't know what. And he ended with the communists.
I understand.
Yeah.
Anetta, before we go to the second part of my question, and that is about the effect of German reunification on
Yes.
Jews of East Germany. I want to ask you a question which I cannot pass over, and that is the question about your collaboration with Stasi, was East German secret police. It's interesting to me because when it seems you started being an informant, an informer to Stasi, I
Yes.
actually was exiled from the Soviet Union after a number of years of being tortured in mental hospital with insulin shots.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was a bad boy, just like you, just we selected a little bit different road.
Yeah.
So please tell me about how a brave girl like you decided to tell Stasis, about her friends.
No, I didn't talk about my friends.
But
This is one of the things. The Stasi, well, there were two reasons.
okay.
One reason was a friend of mine tried to escape the GDR. They caught her. And then they found out, of course, that I was a very close friend and I knew everything about. So they tried to interrogate me for I don't know, 7-10 hours. It was a long time. I was 19 years old, and I didn't tell them. But in the end of the in a certain moment, somebody from the Stasi came and said, "Well, let's have a coffee. I know you have communist parents and you believe in the idea of socialism." And I said, "Yes, I do." This was this part of my brain. And he
So
said, "Why
there
don't
was bad Stasi and there was good Stasi.
Yes, for me it was, because for me, for instance, everything, the state and the Soviet army was the only thing that protected us, the Jews, and the feeling something protected us from the Germans. My father always said to me, the state is our is the security,
Our protector.
The protector. Yeah, the state and the Soviet and the Soviet army, they are the protectors. So I said, of course, one thing was I was afraid about this girl and escaping, and so and I thought probably when I say yes, they will stop to interrogate me. And the second was I never my father always said, "Are you never fitting? You never are this kind of young socialist person I thought you could be. You're always causing problems." And in this moment, I thought, probably I can do something right by doing this. This was, I'm not very proud of that, but this was the idea.
Annette, it's very interesting because when reading about this thing, actually, this is exactly what I thought. I spoke to a friend of mine and she said, "Well, she has to be a coward." I said, "He has nothing to do with cowardice. She is not a coward. I did not know you before this conversation. Now I can confirm it. She is a brave woman. But she obviously was ideologically committed to that system.
Yeah, I tried.
Yeah.
This was the problem. I tried, and this was an opportunity to overcome the obstacles, because I tried and tried and never fit. And I, I always had problems with the FDJ, and the party, the Communist Party, even didn't want me as a member. They said, no, you are not, you don't fit. And so this was something very ridiculous. So I had this, and I have to say, I never talked about my friends. This is a lie. What they tried to do with me,
Yeah.
I discovered it very late, because I didn't, I said, well, what are they trying to do? Because they always asked me to become friends of people from several embassies. It was a moment of the recognition of the GDR and being member of the UN. And so a lot of journalists and diplomats came in. And the Stasi wanted to know what they think about the GDR. And on the other hand, they wanted to take this little red-haired girl to put it into the line to see if somebody is interested from another intelligence service. So they had a double spy, you know? I didn't know that it just discovered it when I saw all the papers, and this was the idea, but they didn't tell me. So I was sometimes I met with the embassy of Peru or something, and they said, well, Peru is not so interesting for us because they are lefty. Well, don't you know other people? And so, and I never fulfilled, even in this, I couldn't fulfill what they wanted.
So
But
you disappointed them.
I think so. I think so. He always was like, why don't you? So, but the difficult situation was I was studying in Rostock. It is a town in the north.
Anita, I understand what you're saying, because my KGB guys were offering me all kinds of things, joining this university, this school, this opportunity. Of course, I never
Yeah, I always failed.
agreed to anything.
I was not interested, I found a file that was very funny. There was somebody who reported about me in an early stadium when I already joined Stasi.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy said, well, Anetta is very social. She's socializing a lot. There's a party, and there are a lot of people here who could be very interesting. But what is she doing? She is standing all the time in the kitchen talking to a girlfriend about boys. She's not very
What's wrong with that? She had
yeah,
to
but
talk.
they thought I could, have a chat with a Western journalist or diplomat, and so. But I refused because it was not so interesting. I didn't know what to tell. So I don't know. I don't think this was braveness. It was just.
I understand. So it was a commitment to that system. So
and I quit. I had to quit in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
When I first went to an African country. This was 79. I came back and I was really frustrated about what the GDR Germans are doing there. And then it continued in my travel to other countries like Mozambique and Angola. And there I saw the racist face of the Germans, the GDR Germans. And about racism, there is something I cannot stand. When somebody is talking to other people in a racist way, then this is the end for me. I cannot stand this.
Why was it any different the way East Germans were racist than from other people that you saw as racist?
No, but in the streets, of course, I was aware. But in my presence, I was aware when something happened. In my presence, nobody was racist, and I was not in the circle of people who are racist because they were all Jews mainly, and but there were GDR officials, people from the party, people who are
So
representing the
it was because
anti-Semitism.
the officials were racist. That's what did
And
something
this
to you,
was
right?
where the two parts of my brain came together like this and said, no, that's it. This was the
This is
moment.
not what I imagined my country to be, right?
No,
Mm.
this was a moment of
So it was 82. And what did you do as a
no, this was
result?
earlier. This was 81.
81.
And it took a while. It was clear when I came back from Mozambique that I would quit all this, but it took me a while to do so. First, I tried not to answer the phone, and then so it took a while. But then I told him, no, I will not. And this is racist country, and this is not anti-fascist country, and blah blah blah. So that's it. And
So the reality of the country came in conflict with the ideals that you believe the country had.
yes, especially when it comes to people I didn't expect it, or I expected, but it was so close to me, It was like on the other side of the table. I know when I was in Berlin, of course, people are racist and they're treating people, Black people or Vietnamese people, in a bad way. But in this moment, they were sitting on a table talking about the African partners in a way I couldn't accept that. And I told them, and of course, immediately it was forbidden for me to work as a translator outside of the GDR. I lost my job at the university, and the career, whatever, was over. It was absolutely clear. But in this moment, I didn't give a shit. That was just like, okay, so that's it. This was the moment, and then in 1985, I started family life, and I was married, and so I tried to escape a little bit. I was opposition. I tried to help people, but it was a modest life and family style. And then when it came to the end of the GDR, nobody knew, but in the late 80s, 87 and
The
so.
changes in East Germany in the 80s were a result of Gorbachev coming to power in the Soviet Union.
Yes.
Without it, the Honecker and everybody else would not be doing this liberalization that they were doing.
No, they didn't. They didn't have any liberalization. It was the economy that broke down. It was an implosion, and everything fell apart. We had the sensation of things falling apart. Like people were very angry, and everything was like. So, and in this situation, Gorbachev came, and yeah, and then I asked for leaving the GDR. I officially asked for leaving, yeah, and this took a while. Meanwhile, the GDR disappeared. No, that's not true. It took a while, and in this time, my marriage broke. So my husband
Either
went to
your
West.
country or your marriage,
Yeah. No, he went to the West, and I was staying there because I couldn't leave with him to Western Germany, where I didn't know anybody. And so decision was, do I want to separate from my husband, or do I want to leave the country? And in this moment, something, I said, no, I want him to leave, because people couldn't, even when they were divorced, they had no chance to find another apartment. So we were living together, and this was very stressful.
So you had to, even after divorce, you had to live in the same apartment.
Yes. Yes. And then he left.
For Soviet Union, it's a commonplace affair.
Yeah, of course. I know. Yeah, it was always, GDR was always much better than the Soviet Union in several things.
Right.
Yeah. But in this moment, when he left, and I started to make this work in the opposition. I had much more energy to do so, and I started to work in this opposition, and then the movement, the peace movement, and then the war came down. But before that, we were organized in little clandestine groups to talk about issues. We want to discuss about when the wall came down, or blah blah blah, whatever. And my thing was to talk about anti-Semitism and racism in the GDR, and because all the other issues were like, yeah, they're interesting, but not. I just want to talk about this, and so I.
So for you, being Jewish was narrowed down to being anti-racist.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Now, because you're not religious person.
Not very much, but I'm getting closer.
You're getting closer.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm becoming closer. Not real. I mean, I don't. Well, it's not about believing in something or in somebody, but to find the sense of things. And actually, I'm working very much in. I wrote an essay in our book. We had a book together with Martin, and I wrote an essay.
Besides the one that we have on the wall?
Yeah. It is the basis of the anti-modern system. Mm-hmm. And I wrote an essay about anti-Semitism as a reaction of the concept of Jewishness. And I think this is a very interesting stuff, and I want to know more about it.
Anti-Semitism as reaction against modernism?
And yeah. And
I think this is a very, very valid idea.
Yeah, of course. And I think that
this is one of the causes of anti-Semitism, not all. It does not cover all, but one.
Continue. I think that Judaism is a very modern form of instruction of the human race to get from the Abraham tense to modern civilization by taking different steps, who are very complicated. And I think if there is a God, I don't know. I mean, then the only way to educate the mankind.
Nobody really knows. Nobody. Some people believe, some people don't believe. But to know, nobody knows. Continue, please.
That's true. I think the only form of bringing the mankind to certain ideas is to bring them. If I would be God, I would try to establish a pedagogic of dilemmata of contradictions. So the human race has to come from one contradiction to the other, from one to the other, to one to the other. So it's step by step to get rid of ideas who are very to get rid of a life without ethics. So ethics are not just coming from one day, they are a development, and you only can get into this when you have a long experience in ethics, and you always give it to the next generation. It's not only the halakha or something like that, but it's the entire form of thinking and of dilemmata and contradiction, dialectic. And it's just very it's a very, very simple way to explain. I cannot do that more right now.
I guess that's the reason God established not yeshiva of Abraham, but nation that came out of Abraham. People.
Yeah, first the nation, then the law, right, and then the discussion.
Yes, yes.
These are the 3 steps.
In any case, so 1989 was really a turning point for Germany and for Jews in the West and in the East. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, by the time the what do you call it? Wende, you call it? You know, turnabout occurred, or German reunification occurred, then the number of Jews in West Germany was what? Something like 20,000 Jews?
Yeah.
And Eastern Germany, maybe 1,500, 2,000?
Well, officially 300.
300? Oh, so...
And all these people who were, like my parents, not member of the congregations, when you count all them, I guess about 3,000, yes.
3,000.
But members of congregations, observing Jews, 300.
Okay, so about 3,000 there, 20,000 there, and it's funny. Well, it's funny, not funny. I'm not going to be laughing at this funny, but actually, vast majority before the war, before the Hitler, vast majority of Jews of Germany lived actually in the area that became East Germany, GDR, not West Germany.
Less. Well, there were a lot of Jews in Frankfurt, Munich, Hamburg,
but most
Berlin.
of Jews lived in what became eventually East Germany, GDR.
You sure?
Yes. By far. I mean, by far, most Jews. In any case, today in Germany, we do not have 600,000 Jews that were lived before the war, before the Holocaust.
170 in Berlin. And
170,000 in Berlin?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And but what about in other cities too?
Altogether 650.
Today, 650,000?
No, at that time.
Oh, at that time. I understand.
Yes,
at
now,
that time,
now we have about 200,000. Half of them are members of congregations. The other half are just Jews who live there.
And most of them are from the former Soviet Union.
Right.
Okay. Now, I have to say this, that when I saw Jews from the Soviet Union going to Germany, I felt that they were scum of the earth.
Oh, yeah.
I could not believe that they would want to raise their children as Germans.
Yeah, I understand that. I think they didn't know. You know, it is so interesting because a lot of them not came from St. Petersburg or Moscow, but from Kazakhstan and other regions, and they didn't.
Among them, there's my cousin and his family, and you know, and I knew them when I was growing up, and my impression of scum of the earth was in part formed by people that I knew.
Yeah, I know. I got. Yeah, they had the chance to go to either Israel or Germany. So they chose Germany because they were hoping that they could be, there's more wealth or more chances or less fighting. I don't know what. So there were different reasons, and the borders were open to the Jews at that moment, and it was easier to go to Germany with this law we had than to go to Israel or to the United States.
Now, for Jews in East Germany at the time of reunification, they had a big dilemma because most of them felt, as you felt, but you have changed a little bit but many of them felt that East Germany was a protector and it was anti-fascist, and now they're joining this West Germany where there's a lot of fascists.
Yeah.
So that had to be a shock to their system.
Yes, and they some of them even today cannot imagine that even the East Germans were fascists. But then they saw that in East Germany, we had a lot of neo-Nazi groups and neo-Nazi movement, a lot of killings. And in the 90s, there was a very high level of terror movement against immigrants and lefties. So people who are in this kind of ideology, say GDR is better, they will still defend this and will say, well, they did so because they are unemployed, or they did so because the West made them this way or so. But it's not true. The truth is East Germany is also a following society on National Socialism. And even though they had no experience in how do you say Aufarbeitung? How do you say? They never discussed National Socialism in their own families, in their own villages, in their own cities. They never discussed and never went through this kind of small but
regarding the Holocaust or regarding Shoah in East Germany, it was complete silence.
Completely. Even Jews were silenced. There was not such a thing as Jews. They said in the concentration camps, people from many countries were killed. That was it.
Given the current situation, I want to ask you, there's war that Russia started against Ukraine in order to restore the former Soviet Union and Tsarist Empire and whatever else they have in their mind they want to restore. That has to have effect on Germans in a big way. Now, I understand that some people complain that Germany is not supplying enough arms to Ukraine, but my feeling is that Germany has a good reason to be careful, because it's afraid not so much of Soviet Union or of Russia, but of itself. It would be a third major confrontation in 100 years between Germany and Russia, if the whole thing would roll out the way it seems like rolling out now.
But I think people from Poland, France, or Hungary, Czechoslovakia have the same problem. In this case, Germany is not the aggressor. I think that
no, I did not mean that Germany is aggressor. What I meant was this.
Yeah, I know, but the solidarity that people feel with Russia, a lot of people feel, is because there is a long tradition of admiring.
In East Germany, there's a feeling of solidarity with Russia.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes, and because it is for economic reasons, because they have the gas and so. But it's also a long tradition of they have this feeling about Russia, that Russia was always a soulmate for Germany. Like, they have this huge Reich, they have this poor people, they have this fantastic literature, these wonderful music, like they have all this, and they have these woods, these endless woods, and the big I don't know what, they have this amazing nature. And then they have the Tsar, who is cruel
What about Stalin? By comparison
and
to Stalin,
it's
Tsar is
something
nothing.
I know, but in their mind, there is a certain admiring on
Actually,
this
I'm
kind of
sorry, I
figure.
have to say that even by comparison to Hitler, if Hitler would not kill 6 million Jews, what Hitler did, how many Germans Hitler killed by comparison to how many Russians Stalin killed, is nothing.
Yeah, but this is another discussion. I just want to explain that that the feeling of East Germans toward Russia now, today, is an answer on a very old sentiment about Russia.
It's amazing.
The Soviet Union was not exactly what they meant, because they were communists and they were this and this, but there was an admiring for figures like Stalin. There was an admiring like all the czars and so. And even their cruelty, to be cruel, was something they said, oh, this is, oh, I mean, it's like our Hitler. There's something that is this is responding to their feelings about Germany.
What you just said is worth conversation all of its own, because this is, to me, I have not even thought about it. But now that you mention it, I'm thinking, yeah, there's something to it.
There is something to it.
Annette, I'm going to ask some questions of Martin.
Of course, I'm very sorry that I took all the time, Martin.
No, we need more, but I just want to, ask Martin. You were born in West Germany, right?
Yes.
And you a doctor. You
Yes.
a specialist in history. You a journalist. You a teacher, professor at university. Why did you get involved with Annette?
My father lived 1945 in Rostock. My mother lived in 1945 in
Rostock, you mean in East Germany?
Yes.
Okay.
1945, when the Allied troops came.
Right.
My father lived in Rostock and my mother lived in Chemnitz. Mm-hmm. And they went out together with their parents to the West in the 50s. And they met each other in Freiburg. That's the city where I was born in 1955. Saying this, you know that the history of my parents from Rostock and from Chemnitz played a big role in our family. So all the time when I grew up, stories from friends and others from East Germany played a role in our family. And we had contacts to them. That means we were writing letters, they were sending letters and so on. And later on, when I became a student in West Berlin, this was in the 70s, I became friends with dissidents from the GDR, because this was always something that interested me. And there was a special thing that I was very much interested in. That was this wonderful poet and singer, Wolf Biermann, who lived in the GDR, but was a dissident singing songs against the socialist system. But he himself was a very left-wing communist guy, but was a dissident. I was very much interested in that thing. So I was looking for all these weird stories of GDR, and that became subject of my dissertation. I wrote about dissidents in GDR, but that was a time I did not know Anetta. But then she published in 2004 a wonderful autobiography, and I read this and then did an interview with her for a magazine. And from this moment on, we were talking together, working together. I was very fascinated by her story, and not only fascinated by the story. That was a time when she already did the Amadeo Antonio Foundation. I was fascinated by the work of this foundation. She did something that more or less in this time no other organization did. They tried to win young people from East Germany and later on from West Germany too, to get a stand against right-wing extremism, to get a stand against anti-Semitism and racism. I was fascinated by this work. So this is how I get in context. So the main moment was 2004, the autobiography of Anetta Kahane. Ich sehe das, was du nicht siehst. I was, after I read that book, I wanted to meet her and we met.
And ever since you became good friends.
Yes.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
what about Martin? What about your course that you're teaching about Germany to hell and back, and that has some things, in fact, a lot of things to say about German anti-Semitism, you know, as an ideology. Was it idea of doing something in anti-Semitism came before you met Anetta or after?
When I grew up, my parents were, let's say, ordinary German Nazis, I would say today. So Jews, anti-Semitism.
Martin, to me, this ordinary German Nazis produces some feeling that I do not get in some philharmonic orchestra.
Okay. My grandfather was a gas war researcher and a longtime fellow of the NSDAP. He was even part of the Munich, the attempt in Munich of Hitler to throw over the German government.
After which he went to jail?
Yes, but my grandfather did not went to jail. He became a chemist, and he did secret research for the German Reichswehr. And he cooperated with the Nazis very much. My other grandfather, it's not so very clear. So I did not get all the files. As long my other grandfather was not psychologue. How do you say this in
psychologist? Psychologist or a psychiatrist?
Yes, exactly. And he hated Sigmund Freud. And yes, you can imagine what
he hated for good reason, or because Freud was a Jew.
Because he was a Jew, and because he thought that the soul is not a soul, but it is part of a bone, something like that. Weird thing. So you can imagine what, let's say, family talk in my home was. And there was another good friend of my grandmother, I should add. Maybe you heard the name. This is one of the murders of Rosa Luxemburg, and he was part of our
what did you just say?
Coffee drinking table.
Martin, what did you just say? Please repeat about this thing about Rosa Luxemburg.
Yeah, there was a good friend of my grandmother was the murder of Rosa Luxemburg. And when I was 16 years old, he was sitting at a table at home, and we were.
Was this the grandfather that was Hitler's comrade, or was it? How did it?
He was a good friend of my grandfather and a good friend of my grandmother, and he was sitting at home. At the coffee table when I was 16 years old, just to give you an impression, when I say they were ordinary German Nazis, what was the atmosphere at home? So this was a Nazi family, and but I started to I became able to think about that, because West Germany was different to East Germany. There had been the Nuremberg trials. There had been open public discussions about Auschwitz and other things. So I started to learn.
There was also a relationship with Israel, which East Germany did not have.
Exactly. But mainly there was a public debate on all of that.
Right.
And when I came to university, I started to learn about all of that. And that turned me. So I started to reflect the history of my family and what they had done and what had happened. And well, that brought a big change. I started to rethink all that, and hopefully I started to become another guy than I just was when I was a little child or a little kid and grew up in this family.
You know, we could talk and talk, but I want to
Yeah.
ask. I mean, this is nothing, you know, by comparison to the things that I could ask you. But my question is this: Anetta, I think I read it in your Martin paper or maybe some other place, but she has been now on the lists of various right-wing organizations as a target.
Yes.
And given that many of these right-wing organizations in Germany, you know, at least members of those organizations, you know, start using weapons in order to kill Jews and others and things like this, there's a fear that Anetta being on the top of the list. In fact, I think she said it that if she is not on the list of that organization, that organization is worth nothing, or something like this.
Yeah,
it's by sarcastic humor, sense of humor.
I understand, Anetta. You know, I appreciate it. But what, Martin, can you say about the situation? You wrote about it.
Yeah, I was able to write about it because when we became friends, we started to talk about it. First, when we met 2004, I think I did not even see what was going on. But later on, Anetta pointed me at that, and I started to read the different articles in right-wing magazines, the different articles in left-wing magazines, the different conservative articles on her. And this is very clear. When you are able to analyze anti-Semitism, you see the anti-Semitic language and the anti-Semitic ideas behind that. In the eyes of right-wing extremists, Anetta is something like a Jew, which is coordinated with a lot of other Jews in the world, and they want to destroy Germany by a mass immigration. So Anetta is, that's what they call the big replacement. That's the figure. Some of these right-wing guys have the same ideas as the man who killed Rosa Luxemburg. They see Anetta Kahane as a Jewish Bolshevist girl that wants to destroy Germany and is cooperating with other communists and so on. On the left-hand side, it's a bit different. The lefties, they recognize Anetta as a capitalist, cooperating with democracy and insofar destroying socialist culture and anti-capitalist consciousness. That is, and working together with Israel, the Zionist enemy. This is how they see from the left Anetta Kahane. And then there is the conservatives. This is not always anti-Semitic, but sometimes in the center of the conservative, so to say, hate image of Anetta Kahane, there is a lie. That lie says Anetta Kahane never dealt with the cooperation with the Stasi. That's not true. But it is told on every conservative publication that I know in Germany, always the same thing. Anetta Kahane was part of the Stasi, and she is lying about that. That's not true. She always was talking about that. Read her autobiography. She initiated scientific research on that. It's not true. She was always very open about that. But the conservatives, because they want to say Anetta Kahane is a radical communist who wants to destroy democracy, they lie about that. They do not see her.
She wants to destroy democracy.
Yes, they see her.
What do they think democracy is?
Yeah, that's the point. The German conservatives in my eyes, they have a nostalgia for the anti-communist, nationalist West German state. So they feel sorry about the end of this old ideology, and they project.
I'm sorry, East Germans feel sorry and West Germans feel sorry?
A little bit, yes. A little bit, yes.
It was the idea, I have to probably one sentence, it is the idea of the German nation as a white and German nation.
Mm-hmm.
This is what democracy is.
But how do you, Anetta, so do you as a Jew fit in that conception of German nation?
No.
Yeah, that's the problem as far as I'm concerned for German nation. But German nation does not feel that way, unfortunately.
It never felt. I mean,
Never felt that way. German nation wants to be German nation, and Hitler is.
Yeah, the traditional idea of Germany is a homogeneous German nation. They are not able to accept that this can be a pluralist body.
But Germany never was homogeneous. I mean, it was divided in lands. In fact, in my mind, the way I see it, Hitler and anti-Semitism is the only thing that make Germany homogeneous.
Exactly. That's the point. But they always feel nostalgia for their old ideology. That's the problem. And that is why and how Anetta Kahane is attacked in that anti-Semitic way. And the big point is anti-Semitism always existed in Germany.
Not only in Germany, but everywhere.
Not only in Germany, in Europe, in many countries of this world. Today, and that's the big scandal, police and judiciary are not giving shelter to Anetta Kahane.
Why?
Though it is clearly visible what is going on. There was even a terrorist who in court, Franco A. He was called because he had done. He wanted to know where the offices are of Anetta Kahane and others. There were pictures found on his smartphone. He had stolen weapons from the German military and other things. So the court in the end says he is punished with 5 years going to prison, because the court is convinced that he wanted to kill not only Anetta, there were other people he wanted to kill too. They are convinced. And though this is going on, the German police and the German judiciary are not really giving shelter to Anetta Kahane. So Anetta Kahane does not have police shelter. She's attacked as a Jew, but is not given the police shelter that Jewish institutions in Germany have. That is a real big scandal.
It is, and it implicates the government. It implicates the police in identity feelings toward people like that. If it would be the other way around, something like they would provide instantly any police protection that the person needed. But when it's a Jew attacked by Germans, it's not that important.
I don't think that is the point.
What is the point, Anetta?
I don't think they didn't protect me because I'm Jewish. I think that it is less important. We are just a shitty small NGO organization. Of course, yes, Anetta Kahane is attacked and so, but I mean, really, shall we do all these efforts to just protect this person, because I mean, if you have on the other side, the other two people were members of the parliament and minister of the government, so of course they are protected for the same thing, but not me. This is a.
Are there a lot of Anetta Kahanes in Germany?
I don't know. No, no.
Martin, are there a lot of Anetta Kahanes in Germany?
There's not. There's only one Anetta Kahane in Germany, but there is many other wonderful people who stand up against right-wing extremism and others. And there is many others who are attacked too by right-wing radicals and others. And many of them do not get shelter from the police and from the judiciary. There has been a new publication by a journalist organization in Germany. It's called Korrektiv. And they were telling 57 stories of persons who are not Anetta Kahane, but are doing similar things than Anetta Kahane does. And so this is not a single case. There is many other cases too. And other journalist, his name is Ronen Steinke. He has done a book, Terror Against Jews is the title. And in this book, he is telling that in many, many cases, in the 2 German post-war states, when Jews were attacked, police was not giving shelter. Sometimes even police...
You mean shelter or protection?
Protection.
Both. In the case of Anetta, that should be protection. There should be a police shelter every day, like many other Jewish institutions have, in my eyes, but there is not. And there is many Jewish communities who do not have police shelter. Think about the attack on the synagogue in Halle in the year 2019, when this man wanted to kill all the visitors of the synagogue, and there was no police shelter. The only shelter that the people in the synagogue had was the door of the synagogue, which was so stable that he was not able to enter the synagogue. But there was no police standing in front of the synagogue.
But it was unexpected, it seems to me, at that time.
Yes, but normally, yes, but they have to give a report.
Mhm.
Is there a danger? Is there a chance
And didn't they
of
put
danger?
afterwards, after that incident, didn't they put some military guard, to guard the synagogue?
No, they have sometimes they have a police protection, but is there a real danger question was answered with no, and and this was in my case the same. So they were said no. But there's another point. It's very interesting. I realized that people who are threatened by Islamistic violence, Islamistic people or immigrant people, they immediately get protection. So this is also a point of view, if there is somebody threatened by some, people from the Middle East, so they have to.
So when Jews are attacked by Muslim extremists, the police acts quickly. But when
well, it's not Jews or not Jews. It's just when there are people who are in the media very present, and then they are attacked by Islamistic people. They getting mails and stuff, and so then the same thing that I got. Then they get a protection, because there's also a racist idea in this. Because these German neo-Nazis are our kids. The others, the others are the others, and they of course are so aggressive. They are able to kill.
So there's a certain level of intimacy between state, police, and those right-wing extremists.
Right. Right. There are a lot of problems also in different police departments. And just the last years, it started to become an issue, a public issue, that a lot of policemen and women are racist or part of right-wing groups, or they are in chat rooms with neo-Nazis, or they are doing conspiracy and part of a militant group. And so there was a lot of cases. There were a lot of cases. And I hope they will continue to to keep an eye on that.
Mm.
And I'm very happy that they do so now. But there was always this way, the German police and all these all these protection systems were full of people who had Nazi ideology.
Can Jews walk on the streets in Germany dressed as Jews? That is in kippah, and
Yes, they do.
they do?
Yeah,
Without any
Sometimes-
problems?
Well, sometimes they get problems, but for instance, we have a lot of people here in Berlin from the Orthodox community. They're always going with the keyboard and tsar and things and so, or with hat. And sometimes they are attacked. But they are, yeah.
And
I remember one situation when we talked to the mayor of the city of Berlin. It was some years ago. And there were, I think, 20 people from Jewish people, not representing the official Jews, but just average Jewish people. And every one of us told its story about aggression and attacks. And 1, 2, 3, and they were horrible. Like, yes, our kids were attacked on the playground and this and that and so. And after everybody talked, the mayor said, okay, thank you very much for your report. I still don't believe that the Berliners are anti-Semitic. And and now I have to leave.
this is absolutely disgusting. We're out of time. I hope that we're gonna talk again. But before we go, I want to ask this question. The way I see it, in 2021, the police in Germany reported about something like 2,700 anti-Jewish attacks of different sorts, from insults to vandalism to physical attacks. But in 2022, in the first 9 months, I think, there was only 1,500. And my question is, what happened between 21 to 22 so the numbers dropped so much?
I'm not really into this. I think, first of all, the numbers are not complete yet. Mm-hmm. So you have always the full number after the end of the year, And I don't know what happened. Probably there were different other things, like the
I was thinking maybe they changed the way they register these attacks.
No.
No,
I think this is just overlapping with other main problems. And I don't know. I could ask. We established a network of register of anti-Jewish attacks. Not the police is collecting this number. It's an NGO. We have nearly in all the states, not all over, but in a lot of states of Germany and a lot of these states. We have this organization called RIAS that is counting and registering incidents. And I'm not really into what is happening, what happened last year, but it is not the police. So the police is very shocked when we present them our numbers.
Well, it would be interesting if you could email me at least the link to this report, and we would, of course, upload it and make it available to our visitors and readers and members of Chicago Jewish Cafe. Yeah. In any case, Anetta, Martin, thank you very much for stopping by. Thank you very much for your time and wisdom, and your telling us about your experience in different areas of your lives. And I hope it's not going to be the last of our conversations.
No, I hope so too.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
You have a great day, so and as they say in China, sei gesund.
Sei gesund.
Okay.
You too.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.